This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
Today, I'm joined by two ChangeMakers, Cindy Stotler, the director of the City of Phoenix's Housing Department, and Sheree Bouchee, the affordable housing advocate for the City of Phoenix. Phoenix is now the fifth fastest growing city in the nation, and after decades of being one of the most affordable cities in the country, Phoenix now finds itself in an affordable housing crisis, with some estimates predicting almost 200,000 units shy of the current need. Cindy, explain to us, how did this happen and what's being done?
You know, I'm a Phoenix native, so I grew up here, and Phoenix was always affordable. And in the 70s and 80s, even into the 90s, Phoenix was affordable. But as folks started to recognize that the Sun Belt was a great place to live, they started moving here in droves, and our construction did not keep up with the population growth. So in the last 30 years, Phoenix produced approximately 220,000 new housing units, while population grew by 820,000 people. So that has left us in a severe housing shortage, which is causing an affordable housing crisis.
So on one hand, it's great to have this amount of growth and, having this growing number of incoming residents who are coming, maybe even from more expensive housing communities. But I also read that Phoenix had about 65% of those people that you mentioned who have moved in, but they can't still afford a house. Sheree, do you want to review with us what strategies you guys have been able to use to counteract this?
The city, as a part of our Housing Phoenix plan, has developed a 9-point initiative plan that will establish zoning incentives for affordable housing developers. It will create allowances for accessory dwelling units, increase resources for housing, streamline processes so that housing development can go through that development process in a quicker pace, and then create an educational campaign to really outreach to our community so that they're embracing these housing projects and realizing the extreme need in our community, so that one of the major barriers, which is NIMBYism, is overcome through that educational component. A key way that we want to address the deficit of 163,000 homes is to build more housing with the resources that we have remaining. And with this, that will increase our density throughout the city. So we want to include an educational component about density so that folks see it as an opportunity, a way to be sustainably developing the resources that we currently have, and look for options in that arena as well.
These are some great affordable housing strategies that you guys are using to preserve and expand affordable housing. And I know, Quidel, we have been working with the City of Phoenix for over 2 years, and we've implemented several things on your behalf. For example, we've looked at maximizing rent ceilings, landlord recruitments, ensuring every voucher allocated is utilized. Are you starting to see between, what Quidel has been able to work with you in the Section 8 program and then some of these other strategies, increasing density and offering, incentives to spur development or zoning incentives? At what point do you start seeing the success tide happen? Are you on the front end of it? Is it yet to come?
That's a great question. Thank you so much for asking. So, as a part of our plan, each of the 9 initiatives will either have a short term, a medium term, or a long term. We were recently approved to move forward with implementation in June by our city council, a unanimous vote, which was very exciting. But our first short-term initiatives will take about 6 months to implement. So that's when we'll start seeing, in December of this year is when we'll start seeing some of those first initiatives move forward into implementation. The remaining will take a little bit more time, as we'll be completing a lot of community outreach to make sure that we're developing incentives and developing programs that actually work for the community and getting their feedback along that process and buy-in. So some of the medium and long term will take between 12 and 18 months to actually implement those programs.
That's definitely going to be a successful metric for you guys as you move forward. And this is really innovative for the city, and nationwide. So I imagine lots of communities will be reaching out to you to see how you're doing. And you've recently also had another successful launch here with a community that I believe you guys transformed. It was called Deck Park Vista. Tell us more about that project and what do you hope this would do for the future of affordable housing?
So Deck Park Vista is currently a 56-unit affordable housing project that was owned by the city of Phoenix. And the neighborhood around this site has grown in density, and the zoning entitlements for this project far exceed 56 units. So we thought this is a perfect parcel for us to put out an RFP and see what the development community can create using the current zoning entitlements, because we saw that the parcel was significantly underutilized. So we released an RFP, and the proposal that was submitted by Native American Connections, which is one of our key players in our nonprofit affordable housing development arena, they were selected for an award. And we're very excited to say that their redevelopment project will include 201 affordable housing units. So we're tripling the number of units that are at this site. The new development will be more in character with the artistic and character of the blossoming neighborhood that we're seeing along Roosevelt Row. And we'll also be offering 56 project-based vouchers so that the folks that actually live at Deck Park Vista now will have the first right of return, and their rent will not be affected by that. In some cases, their rent will actually be decreased because they'll only be paying 30% of their income. So it's just a win-win on all accounts, and we're really excited. This is a pilot project because one of the key components of our Housing Phoenix plan is to utilize city-owned land and redevelop it through an RFP process. So this was our pilot to see how that worked with the development community, what types of products we could offer and receive through that process. And what we're doing now is we are identifying the remaining city-owned parcels that could be utilized through this RFP process and redevelop more mixed income housing. So in the fall, we'll be going back to council with a list of parcels that we think would be ideal for mixed income housing that are in opportunity areas. So we want things to be located near transportation, near great education system, jobs, all of the resources that make a healthy community, and then putting those parcels out for redevelopment through an RFP process similar to Deck Park. So we're really excited about Deck Park and to duplicate that process as well so we can make a big impact on the community.
Well, and this also sounds like you're addressing some of the frequent criticisms of affordable housing that just says, oh, well, it just costs too much to build, or it costs too much to set aside affordable housing. But I really appreciate what I hear you saying is that you've actually looked to say, okay, the city owns parcels of land. Now, how can we partner with the development community, go out and create a community of choice here? And therefore, you're netting real results for the community. And yet, you're still having access to all of those community features that everybody enjoys. How did the brainstorming within the community work? How did you launch that?
Well, it started out as an affordable housing initiative, and we knew that it would not be successful if we did not involve our community and hear what our community needs were. So we started out with initial community outreach, telling everybody what the goals were and hearing their feedback about what they think would be great policy initiatives that could help develop more affordable housing. We took all of their feedback into account. We had some internal ideas based on some thoughts about how we could create incentives. And then we also did extensive research within other communities in the United States and what they're doing and what has been successful for them, consolidated all of that, and then brought it back out to the community and said, okay, here are some potential policy initiatives based on your original feedback, based on our research. How do you feel about these? And then receive their feedback once again. And with our final consolidated policy initiatives, we were able to bring that to our subcommittee and council for approval. So it was great. We had probably over 50 different community outreach sessions with either individuals one-on-one or large groups. It was great. We had a lot of positive feedback and a lot of people that were kind of awakened by this process and not realizing what a huge issue housing affordability is in our community. So it was just a great process going through that community outreach.
So Cindy, I want to ask you a question because you've been with the city for how long now?
Oh my gosh, Katie, I've been with the city for almost 31 years.
So you have, I mean, you've really seen the not just the tide turn for Phoenix, but you've also seen the city get, really assertive and positively proactive in affordable housing. What would you, just kind of looking back on your span, what would you say has been the most successful housing policies or housing projects or developments that you guys have done?
For the housing department, I think, some of the changes actually at the federal level, the HUD new programs like rental assistance demonstration and choice neighborhoods, which were specifically designed for the redevelopment of public housing and what they're calling the repositioning of public housing, has helped us enormously. And it's going to create thousands of mixed income units. The city of Phoenix, starting in 2015, we started taking advantage of these programs and started identifying all of our existing public housing properties for redevelopment or significant rehabilitation. The biggest change that we're having right now is in the Edison Eastlake community, which is just 1 mile east of downtown Phoenix. And it had 577 units of obsolete public housing. It was the largest concentration of public housing in the state. We won a Choice Neighborhoods grant of $30 million. With that grant application, we had $196 million of match or leverage because the community was so excited. We had so many partners excited about revitalizing this really low income neighborhood right next to downtown. So we're demolishing the 577 units of public housing and building back 1,011 units of mixed income housing, including 40 units of home ownership townhomes, and pretty much revitalizing an entire neighborhood around that public housing and bringing in other investments as we go. I think that HUD has helped us change our mind about how we're utilizing our public housing properties and given us a lot of tools to go forward and create more mixed income housing on those properties that we already own. Because as you said, taking advantage of land that we own is how we're able to build more affordable housing.
And those are fantastic metrics right there. Think about almost 600 units that were obsolescent. They probably weren't contributing to the area or the community, or they weren't spurring revitalization. And then you're putting in over 200 million in redevelopment, partnering dollars, in-kind services, renovations, and you're getting double the units and home ownership. I mean, this is a fantastic turn, I'm sure, for that area. What has the community response been like as you've worked through that project?
So, Katie, the community's response has been overwhelming. Before we received the implementation grant of $30 million, we had a $2 million planning and action grant, which meant that we spent 2 years with HUD-funded planning efforts. So we had over 75 community meetings over those 2 years, and they helped design the new neighborhood or the transformation plan to create this new neighborhood. So the community was involved from the very beginning. They've lived there. Many people have lived there their entire lives. And we didn't just talk to the public housing residents, we also talked to the surrounding residents in single family homes and other multifamily properties in that community. And so everyone in the community got to meet and talk about what was important to them, what they wanted to preserve in the history of the community, and what kind of new construction they wanted to see and what kind of home they wanted to live in when we redeveloped. So I think the community is super excited about this and can't wait to move into the new housing as we're developing. So phase one, 177 units called Soluna, is currently under construction and should be done in about 18 months. And everyone is watching that and just with their breath, holding their breath, and can't wait to move into that.
Well, this is encouraging that, you've got a good cooperation with the community, the funders, HUD's at the table, proactive repositioning, and you've got a city council and city manager who are all in that continuum of providing affordable housing. So and I read that Phoenix is also looking at how they handle, I think it's a state housing eviction fund, and that you've been making changes in that area as well. So it sounds like you're hitting the policy front. Talk to us about what changes are happening with that initiative.
Katie, we did receive quite a bit of money from the CARES Act directly to the city of Phoenix as a local authority. And I think because we're the fifth largest city in the country, we received a significant amount of the CARES Act funding to assist our residents as needed. And the city put aside about 30 million of that CARES Act funding towards eviction prevention. And we're partnering with a local nonprofit Wildfire who does that already, and they've greatly expanded their services. And I think they're up and running either this week or next week to offer rent, mortgage, and utility assistance to Phoenix residents who have lost their jobs or seen a reduced income due to COVID. So we're trying to create a really expedited process to get that assistance out there and help them pay rent, and then also help the landlords get the rent and make their payments. As a landlord, I completely understand the difficulties when we have an eviction moratorium and folks stop paying rent. You still have a mortgage to pay, or a loan to pay off, and your payments don't go away. So we're trying to help everyone, the residents getting the assistance, and then also the landlords to keep them afloat and make sure we don't have a different kind of housing crisis after this is all over.
And one of the things that's also benefiting residents is the change in the minimum wage. And apparently, Phoenix set some things in motion to change the wage. And tell us what specifically the intent is for the Phoenix economy, or to stabilize some of the wage dynamics there, or the labor dynamics.
Yeah, so Phoenix has for a long time had a lot of low income jobs, a lot of service jobs, tourism jobs. And so we've been suffering with, low income jobs and a low minimum wage for many, many years. And I think, just recently the city council recognized that they need to do something, and they did increase the minimum wage in Phoenix, and actually increase the minimum wage first. They went first and increased the minimum wage for city employees to $15. So all of our temporary contract employees and regular city employees are all making a minimum of $15 no matter what job they're in. So it's one of those things where we need to recognize, hey, we're the fifth largest city in the country. We need to bring in the higher paying jobs. We need to make sure that the people who are working here in Phoenix can afford a home, to pay their rent and to buy food and pay for car insurance and, other necessities. So it was a wake up call, I think, a few years ago when they realized what people were making and what they could not afford, in this whole housing shortage. It's all related. That has all led to, some of the homelessness that we have, the growing homeless problem that we have across the nation, but here in Phoenix too. People not making enough money to afford, to live in a regular apartment or home.
I'm talking to Cindy Stotler and Sheree Bouchee from the City of Phoenix's Housing Department. We have to take a break right here, but coming up in part 2 of our discussion, Cindy tells us how the city is taking care of their senior population.
Just really trying to connect with them, make sure that they have a connection. If they don't have any family, they're at least connecting with us every once in a while just to see what they need, and that they're still a part of this society. A lot of people are feeling lonely and left out, so I want to make sure that they have some kind of connection.
Thanks for listening to ChangeMakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.